It all began with the typical post-high school mischief. I had hatched a plan with my girlfriend to spend a private weekend at her dad's cabin by the lake. The scheme was straightforward. I'd tell my parents I was visiting my grandparents, leave home on Friday, and meet her at the cabin. We'd have Friday afternoon and most of Saturday to ourselves. We covered our tracks. She'd tell her mom she was with her dad, and I'd call my parents and grandparents, saying I was stopping at a friend's house halfway. If anyone questioned why I never showed up, I'd claim I fell asleep and decided to stay the night. In hindsight, the plan was overly complicated. I could have just said I was staying at my friend's house, but back then, I was too caught up in the excitement. The cabin was about an hour away from both our parents' homes in opposite directions. Despite my nervous nature, I was determined. I'm the type who's always on edge, constantly looking for signs that things might go wrong. This plan, fraught with potential pitfalls, only heightened my anxiety. Every wrong turn, GPS glitch, or unexpected obstacle felt like a warning to turn back. Everything went smoothly at first. I met my girlfriend at the cabin, and we spent the evening like any teenage couple would. Around midnight, I got a call from my parents checking in. I reassured them I was fine and on my way. Then, at 2 a.m., disaster struck. My girlfriend's phone buzzed with a message from her dad. He and her stepmom were planning to visit the cabin early, around 7 or 8 a.m., and would pick her up from her mom's place afterward. Panic set in. We had to clean the cabin and part ways before dawn. She'd go to her mom's apartment, either sneaking in or waiting in the parking lot, while I'd drive to my grandparents' place, doing the same. I left the cabin alone, my heart pounding with fear of being caught. I focused on the road and my phone's GPS, counting down the minutes to my exit. But something was wrong. The exit never appeared. I glanced at my phone, only to find it dead, completely unresponsive. I was lost, with no idea where I was. The road seemed endless, with no signs, exits, or buildings in sight. Just the same stretch of guardrail and impenetrable forest. Hours felt like they passed as I drove, my mind racing with every possible disaster. Running out of gas, breaking down, hitting a deer, each scenario ending with me stranded and having to explain my late-night whereabouts. Then, in the distance, I saw a glimmer of hope, streetlights lining the highway. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The lights seemed endless, and still, there was nothing around. No cars, no signs, just the same monotonous stretch of road. My frustration grew, mixing with the dread that had settled in my chest. I was sweating, my nerves frayed. The radio suddenly burst to life with a deafening static noise, stuck on a single channel. I tried to turn it off, but it was unresponsive. In a fit of anger, I punched the radio, but it did nothing. The static continued, and as I looked out the window, the streetlights began to dim, the static fading with them. Then, everything went dark and silent. Just my headlights, the hum of the truck, and the endless night. I was terrified, more so than I'd ever been. I knew I had to get out of there, but my options were limited. I considered cutting through the woods, but quickly dismissed it as a bad idea. Turning around seemed like the best option. At least I'd be heading back towards civilization. But as I slowed down to make a U-turn, the lights behind me started going out, one by one, darkness consuming them like a monster. I stepped on the gas, determined not to be caught in that darkness. It felt evil, just like the red lights that had lit up moments before. I prayed, tears streaming down my face, begging for mercy and forgiveness. The radio's static and the street lights strobing only added to my terror. I was bawling, convinced I was going to die. Ahead, the lights finally ended, giving way to a dirt road surrounded by trees. I continued forward, hoping for some semblance of safety. The radio hummed softly as I drove, the red lights and static on for now. But my relief was short-lived. A red light appeared in my right mirror, then ahead to my left, then my right. It flickered in and out, the radio's volume rising and falling with its proximity. The voice that came next was the last straw. In a tone like a news broadcast, a woman's voice repeated, too dead on the highway." Over and over, it stabbed at my heart and lungs. I lost it, crying uncontrollably, convinced I was already dead. The lights stopped flickering and settled in one place, the voice growing louder with each repetition. Then, a yellow sign appeared in my headlights, dead Yendi. My heart sank further as the fuel light dinged. I was out of options. The red light behind me grew closer, the voice louder. I decided to turn back, hoping it was the only way to avoid immediate death. I hit the brakes and jerked the wheel to the left, the red light blinding me through the windows. A force hit the side of the truck, metal clanging loudly. I closed my eyes and ducked, feeling something crawl on the outside of the truck. I threw up in my lap and pissed myself, too terrified to move. The tapping on the window, synchronized with the voice, felt like an eternity. I couldn't look, couldn't bear to see whatever was out there. Eventually, the tapping and the voice stopped. I kept driving, eyes closed, hoping the thing was gone. But the fear of crashing kept me from opening my eyes. Finally, I dared to look. Daylight filled the cab, and I saw my exit. Relief washed over me as I turned off the highway. The radio let out one last message. One dead on the highway. I pulled into a gas station, filled up, and drove to my grandparents' house. I told them everything, and to my surprise, they believed me. The evidence was clear: my empty gas tank, the dent in the truck, the cracked windshield. I called my girlfriend, relieved to hear she was fine. But our relationship changed after that. Her parents were worried about me being around her after my incident. I've driven that road since, looked at maps, but there's no place like that. No way to end up on a road like that from the highway I was on. I have so many questions, but one thing is certain. That place, those lights, the darkness, they were evil.